Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Metabolism and Menopause podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I am your host and CEO of VitalityOET. We are a women's nutrition, health, and fitness company that focuses predominantly on women's hormones, particularly as they start going through perimenopause and onwards. We know that you can start experiencing so many changes in this time of your life, whether it be hot flashes, night sweats, irritability, brain fog, or that oh so wonderful weight gain around the middle that seems to have come out of absolutely nowhere, despite you not changing anything. So you go back to those tried and true methods of cutting calories, cutting carbs, doing a bunch of cardio, yet nothing seems to be working. In fact, it feels like you are putting in all this effort and you are just moving backwards. But we know now that your body is inherently different now that you've gone through these hormonal changes. So our mission here at Vitality is to help you really understand how your body changes in this time in your life so you can reach those health and fitness goals, feel in control and at home in your body again, live a life full of vitality, and really understand how to take care of this new body of yours. So today, I am talking about cellulite because this is a question that's come up a few times in our Facebook community, and it's something that happens to so many women. In fact, 87 to 98% of women have cellulite currently. And it all happens at different body fat percentages, and it can happen at any age. So I want to talk a little bit about cellulite, some things about hormones and things like that, things that you can do to improve it, because it is something that a lot of women are concerned about, but it is normal. Okay, but there are things that we can do or work to do to try and set ourselves up for success in terms of having less of it, right? So there are hormones that are correlated to cellulite. So there isn't like a direct relationship, but we can see that when you have this, there's more instances of cellulite, but there isn't like a causal relationship there. So I want you to remember that there's a correlation between them, not like cause and effect. So by reducing these factors or improving these areas, you can hopefully reduce your cellulite, right? So the first that we're going to see is elevated insulin. So we know so many women struggle with blood sugar control issues, right? Estrogen surges. So compared to progesterone, testosterone, if your estrogen is too high compared to those, which happens to a lot of women, you might have low estrogen levels, but estrogen is too high comparatively to your progesterone or your testosterone. Increased in prolactin, and also testosterone seems to have some sort of like protective effect when it does come to cellulite. So we have these things called lipopolysaccharides. Okay, they seep into our bloodstream if we have leaky gut, for example, which a lot of us do have, especially once we start going through perimenopause and menopause. We see higher instances of this, right? What happens is it activates your immune system and it increases systemic inflammation. So you're going to have more inflammation in your body, which we know that when estrogen goes down, we already struggle with inflammation, right? And this can result in cellulite. Things that contribute to inflammation and leaky gut that you should be aware of are birth control. So it's no surprise that so many women are dealing with this, because how many of us have been on birth control or are on birth control? Autoimmune diseases. We know we have a higher instance of these when we're going through perimenopause and menopause, and birth control can actually increase your risk of autoimmune conditions as well. Levels of high insulin resistance. We see this all the time in women, particularly once estrogen goes down or testosterone goes down. We know that your body has a harder time regulating your blood sugars, and you're at increased risk of developing insulin resistance, right? And type 2 diabetes. And then, of course, obesity as well. So there are a few key things here that we do have to focus on improving that can set you up for success, not only for cellulite, but just for health and fat loss in general. And some of these areas are like your gut health. So improving that, making sure you're not constipated, we're having regular bowel movements, decreasing inflammation, eating in a way that supports our blood sugars. That does not mean cutting out carbohydrates, because that can lead to other issues. Working on our bloating, bringing our stress levels down, supporting our hormone production. So there's a lot of things that we actually have control over to help us with this. Okay, so that's the lipopolysaccharides that I'm talking about. So some of the things to help improve your gut health are eating enough carbohydrates so you're getting enough fiber and being hydrated so you're having bowel movements every single day. Okay, they should be happening daily. If you're not, we're at a higher risk of developing cellulite, which is wild, right? So with this, we also know that if we're not having regular bowel movements daily, we also see a buildup of hormones, particularly estrogen, gets reabsorbed from our gut if we aren't eliminating regularly, which can lead to higher estrogen compared to progesterone and testosterone, which is also a risk factor for cellulite. Okay, so, and then with bloating, we want to make sure that we're really focusing on improving our gut health in terms of stress response. We know that if you're someone who has bloating that gets progressively worse throughout the day, that's typically what we like to call stress bloat or a cortisol bloat. So this is from too much stress, because what happens when we're in this like state of fight or flight is blood flow goes away from our gut and goes to our arms and legs to quote unquote fight the bear, run away from the bear, right? Digestion slows down. So without blood flow in our gut, we can't move things through our gut as well. So our gut is supposed to like squeeze and move things along and break stuff down. This really slows down. So then we see more bloating, which can lead to more inflammation, which can lead to more estrogen dominance, which can lead to leaky gut, right? And all these things will then contribute to our risk of developing cellulite as well. So this is where eating regularly throughout the day, having your carbohydrates, taking time to slow down when you're eating, not eating on the go, like actually taking the proper steps to de-stress to help with that bloating. And one of the things we love doing with women is to sit on or lay on the ground or your bed or your couch with your bum close to the wall and your feet are up on the wall. So that helps bring blood flow from your legs back to your gut to help your body digest, right? To get things moving again. It also lowers that stress response, slows your heart rate, slows your breathing, and all those things will help reduce inflammation in your body as well to help you with your cellulite. So when I talk about stress for hormone health and when I talk about stress for fat loss, it's also stress for cellulite. Okay, so the next one is birth control. So this is a big one and it's tough because so many of us have been on that for a long time, or we were on it for a long time. And it does increase the prevalence of being able to see more cellulite, especially if you're taking an estrogen-containing birth control. Synthetic estrogens act differently than natural or bioidentical estrogen, and it will raise inflammation and oxidative stress in our body. And anything that increases inflammation is going to increase your risk of cellulite. So this is where understanding how can we support healthy estrogen production without needing to use birth control? Because a lot of women in perimenopause, for example, get put on birth control as a form of dealing with symptoms, but it's not addressing the root cause, which typically is going to be something around nutrition and stress. So that's something to consider as well. So what is cellulite actually, right? It's an increased fat cell size and fluid around those fat cells. It kind of changes the structure that's holding everything together, which gives your body that like dimply cellulite look, right? The most common place that we're going to see this is going to be your glutes, so your bum, or the back of your thighs. That's the most common places. You'll see it in other places too, but that's predominantly where you're going to see things the most. It has the highest type of stem cell which with estrogen can stimulate the growth of those fat cells. Because remember I said it increases your fat cell size and the fluid around it. So the type of cells that you have in those areas, in the bum and in the thighs, that's where estrogen can actually stimulate that growth. Okay, so estrogen causes the fluid to leak in these areas and you get that more dimply appearance. Okay. So this is where we still want to have healthy amounts of estrogen in our body, but we don't want to have too much estrogen compared to the progesterone and the testosterone. Remember, that's like the ratio that we really want to watch for. This is the whole hormone balance kind of thing. Okay, so here's some bad news is that you can't spot reduce cellulite, unfortunately. But there are other things that you can do, right? So yes, getting stronger and building more muscle in that area is going to be great for you, but we still can't spot reduce fat, right? Our body doesn't work that way. We can spot increase muscle mass, right? But we can't choose where our body loses fat from first. That's not how this works. Otherwise, that'd be pretty freaking awesome. So what can you do to improve your cellulite appearance? How can we reduce it? The first one is improving your blood sugar control. That is number one. So this does not mean removing carbs from your diet. Okay, so we still need to have adequate amounts of carbohydrate, because if we're not having enough carbs, we're going to see that our cortisol levels go up. And like, especially in perimenopause and menopause, before we could handle a 9 out of 10 of stress, before we saw cortisol go up. Now with estrogen lowering, progesterone lowering, we can only handle a 5 out of 10 before chaos kind of starts to happen in our body. And what happens when those cortisol levels are high for too long is we're going to see that your blood sugar control gets worse. Okay, so this is a big one. So if stress is high, cortisol is up, blood sugar gets worse, hormone production gets worse, progesterone actually tanks. It cannot be produced in the presence of cortisol. We are going to see your gut health gets worse, which we talked about is a big contributing factor here. We're going to see more inflammation. We're going to see more issues with liver detox, which will affect your ability to break down estrogen and eliminate it from our body, which again, too much estrogen compared to progesterone and testosterone. We're going to see our thyroid function slow down. So this means that we're going to have less energy. Our metabolism is worse. Our body burns less calories than it would if your thyroid was working properly, which obviously is going to make it harder to lose fat, which again is part of the problem here, right? So you can see how having these high levels of cortisol are really going to negatively affect all the causes that we can see that relationship with cellulite, right? So carbohydrates lower your cortisol levels. They help your body buffer stress. So if you are skipping meals, if you are cutting out carbs, you are eating calories high one day, low the next, that is going to increase your cortisol, which is going to then make it a lot harder to control your blood sugars and all the other things that we see a relationship with that are contributing to cellulite. So how do you eat carbs without then seeing that increase in blood sugar control and blood sugar, right? How can we have carbohydrates without having a risk of insulin resistance? One, your food order. So with your food order, you want to have most of your veggies and protein first before dipping into your carbohydrates. And I had this question, well, like, why? It's all going to the same place. If you have protein or veggies first, it's going to slow the breakdown of the food in your stomach. You're not going to have a blood sugar spike and drop. Your blood sugars will go up a little bit. They'll always go up when you're eating, but it'll stabilize. And it's going to just ride it out, and then dip back down to normal, and then you're good. If you just have a carb on its own without eating something before, so let's say even just like a banana by itself, right? You're going to see this blood sugar spike and then a blood sugar drop. But if you had it with like some yogurt, or if you had it with peanut butter, or you had it after you had a meal, you're not going to have that blood sugar spike and drop. So that's going to help you a lot. So order of eating matters. And that doesn't mean you're going to like break apart your sandwich and eat the insides first and then the bread. That ruins the essence of the meal. What you want to do is maybe you're having some veggies and dip first. Maybe you're having a little bit of salad before. Maybe you're having some like a turkey pepperoni stick and a piece of cheese, or something that's going to help slow down that breakdown and emptying of your stomach to prevent that blood sugar spike and drop. Because when that blood sugar drops, then we have the energy crashes, then we have the cravings, and that doesn't really set us up for success either, right? So order of food intake matters. Upping your protein. The higher your protein intake is, the less likely you are going to experience blood sugar spikes and drops because it digests more slowly. Okay, no naked carbs, so you're never having a carbohydrate on its own. So carbs are not bad for blood sugar. It's all about how you eat them. So I'm not going to have a bowl of white rice on its own, right? I'm usually having it in like with a stir fry with lots of veggies and lots of protein. I'm not going to have a piece of toast by itself. I'm going to have some eggs and sausage first, or maybe if I'm going to have pasta, I have a starter salad first. Like, you're always just making sure that you're having your carb with something, even if it's a piece of fruit. Have some yogurt, have a piece of cheese, have some nuts. Like, that's usually my go-to for a snack will be fruit and nuts, or a piece of cheese and a pepperoni stick and then some fruit. You're always having it with something. You're never having a carbohydrate alone. Okay, so this is all for managing blood sugar response. Another way to really help avoid that blood sugar spike is to go for a walk after a meal, because those sugars that are in your bloodstream now are going to get used up during that activity. So you're not going to see as big of a spike because those energy sources are being utilized in the process. Having more muscle mass. This is huge. If you are putting on muscle mass, you're going to have something to show for it afterwards, right? Your body will look fit and toned once you lose some of that weight, once you lose that cellulite, right? So having muscle mass is super important. Plus, the more muscle you have, the more areas you have for your body to store energy, as opposed to shuttling it to fat mass. So the more muscle you have, the more insulin sensitive your body becomes. You're at a lower risk of developing insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes. As long as you are eating enough food, you are de-stressing, having carbs, and eating them in the right order. The next one is de-stressing. So remember how I talked about being in that chronic stress state is going to negatively affect our blood sugars, inflammation, all the things that we are trying to actively avoid and improve to address the cellulite, right? So de-stressing means you're eating enough food. We're not skipping meals. We're not fasting long term. We are having, consistent calorie intake day to day. We are actively taking time in our day to actually rest for 5 to 10 minutes to slow down your breathing, to slow down your heart rate. We are exercising in a way that isn't too much of a stress for our body. So these things all matter to bring those cortisol levels down, because we do not have the hormones to help buffer stress anymore. Remember, we could handle a 9 out of 10 before. Now it's a 5 out of 10. So we need to learn how to buffer stress through nutrition, through lifestyle, and through sleep, which is the next one. The more sleep you get and better quality sleep you get, the more regulated your cortisol levels are going to be. So for someone who is not sleeping well, or they're not getting like 7 hours of sleep at least, we tend to see that their cortisol levels are imbalanced. They're too high, or they're high at the wrong time of day, spiking in the middle of the night, which wakes you up. And we know that if you are not sleeping enough, your blood sugar control gets worse. You have more energy crashes, you have more cravings, and the cravings are going to be for calorie dense foods like the chips, the chocolate, right? All those kinds of things. So we need to improve our sleep to help buffer that cortisol. Otherwise, it runs rampant and it makes it very hard to eat in a way where you aren't going to be putting blood sugar control at risk, right? So step number 1 for cellulite, improving blood sugar control. Step number 2, improving gut health for estrogen detox. So how can we do this? Because remember I said if we aren't having daily bowel movements, we are reabsorbing estrogen that is being broken down, because that's how we get rid of it, is through bowel movements. And then we have poor levels, like estrogen's too high compared to progesterone and compared to testosterone. So how can we improve our gut health to improve estrogen detox so we're not experiencing this and it isn't causing those fat cells around our bum and thighs to get bigger and retain fluid around them, right? We want to get rid of that cellulite look. Number 1 is eat your fiber and lower your inflammatory foods. So this is where I see a lot of women go wrong, where they think a protein bar is a meal, right? Or they're having a lot of the turkey pepperoni sticks, or they're having, the meat sticks, all those kinds of things. Yes, they're higher in protein. Yes, those protein bars have more fiber in them. However, those, like having more than one a day or relying on those a lot, they're not quote unquote clean, right? They're processed, and there's a lot of sugar alcohols and stuff like that, which can be very pro-inflammatory for a lot of women. I have a friend who is also a health coach, very well known, and she is going through terrible gut health issues right now where everything makes her bloat. She has cut out literally everything. And it's because she relied on these bars and sugar alcohols and these like quote unquote health and diet foods for so long that now her body is just so unhappy and so stressed out, and it's causing an inflammatory response. So this is where we need to be focusing on mostly health food, like whole foods, right? We're looking for our whole grains. We are looking for potatoes and rice and oats and fruits and veggies and quinoa, right? All these things that are also packed with fiber. Fiber comes from carbohydrates. If you aren't having enough carbohydrates from a whole food source, you are going to struggle with your fiber. And there is such thing as too much fiber, because too much fiber will constipate you. If you go from 10 grams of fiber one day and the next day you're at 40 and then you're coming back down, your body, that's a lot of stress on your digestive system, because fiber is notoriously hard to break down, which can cause a lot of bloating, constipation, fluid retention, inflammatory response. So paying attention to how much fiber you're getting in a day, trying to stay in a narrow window of like 5 grams is ideal, and getting it mostly from whole foods. Okay, the fiber that we're getting from the RX bars and things like that, they're not as good, right? We need to have our whole foods, very important. Staying hydrated, super important to help with motility, to help our body function properly, to help get rid of toxins through our urine. It is also really important to lower our cortisol response. So making sure we're eating enough food and eating enough carbs, because otherwise blood goes away from the gut to the arms and legs, like I talked about, and digestion slows down. And then a lot of people, if they're in this high stress state, will either end up super constipated because it slows digestion at the top of the tract, but the bottom of the tract, it'll stimulate it and you'll have the runs. So finding how to deal with that stress appropriately through proper food, through proper nutrition, through proper food timing, getting enough actual whole foods is really important. And then, of course, doing things to support our liver, because our liver is what is going to break down estrogen. Okay, it's how our body detoxes. So anything that's like making our liver have to work overtime is going to make things harder. So unfortunately, alcohol is one of those things, right? When there's alcohol in our system, our body works in overtime just to get rid of the alcohol, and it's not focusing on everything else. So it's a perfect opportunity for estrogen to start accumulating in our body, right? Depending what kind of foods that you're eating, right? Like we want to focus on whole foods. Doing things that are really supportive of our liver is going to help you so much, and reducing stress is just one of those things. Okay. I do want to talk about addressing estrogen dominance, because there are a lot of things that cause estrogen dominance. And it doesn't necessarily always mean that your body's producing too much. It can be that your body's not getting rid of it, right? So you have this bathtub, your body. Is the water just on super, super high? Is it because the bathtub isn't draining that it's accumulating? Is there a plug or something like stopping it partway through the drain where it's not able to get rid of it, right? Like we got to figure out, why is estrogen accumulating? And here are some of the causes of estrogen dominance. The first one is stress. Always, right? We talk about this. So no fasting, no having caffeine on an empty stomach, because caffeine on an empty stomach can spike an increase in your blood sugar response. There's so many things that cause stress, right? Like family stress and financial stress. Like we all think that we're handling it fine, but you are not fine. Your body is telling you things internally otherwise, right? Certain medications like birth control, right? Alcohol consumption. If you have liver issues, detox issues in general. So methylation is a big one. And then the consumption or exposure to xenoestrogens. So these are chemicals that are found in the environment that mimic estrogens in the body. So like BPAs, for example, making sure you're not warming up food in plastic containers. Always use ceramic or glass. Same with storing hot food. Put it in ceramic or glass. I did a whole podcast on hormonal disruptors and covered the xenoestrogens. So you can head back to that episode. I think it's somewhere in the 60s. It was quite a long time ago, but you can find that one there. Otherwise, I'll be here talking forever. The next one is, addressing low testosterone, because if testosterone is too low compared to estrogen, there's also a correlation there between that and cellulite. So with testosterone, it's actually supposed to go up a little bit during perimenopause and menopause to compensate for the decrease in estrogen and progesterone. However, for many women, testosterone drops, which is not okay. This isn't what's supposed to be happening. You get tons of symptoms like low libido, low energy, hard to build and maintain muscle mass, blood sugar issues. So one of the biggest causes of low testosterone is going to be stress. Shocking how stress has made its way into every category here, right? So we need to focus on actively de-stressing through the day, supporting yourself by eating enough food consistently day to day, getting enough protein in, balancing our blood sugars, right? All those things really matter. But then also getting enough sleep is a big one for testosterone. If you are not sleeping well, typically testosterone will take a dive. But then also over or under exercising. So you need to find that sweet spot, because we talk to a lot of women who either like never exercise or they're working out crazy amounts, right? You need to find this in between. And it's really amazing to see how things improve when they actually tailor back their intensity a bit and decrease their volume a bit, what wonders it can do for you. So resistance training, full body, 2 to 3 days a week, where you are focusing on getting stronger every week. We're trying to lift heavier. We're slowing down the movements. We're pausing. We're squeezing at the top and bottom of reps. We're being intentional with the way that we move. We're taking longer rest periods to allow for recovery. These are all things that send the signal to your brain that, hey, we need to build muscle. In order to build muscle, we need some more testosterone, and it helps your body actually react the way that we want, right? Because if you're working out hard and you're not seeing improvements in strength, you're not seeing improvements in your body composition, something is going on. And typically you're trending towards the side of things where it's too much, or the workouts that you're doing just don't send the signal to build muscle. And cardio is one of those things. Cardio will not stimulate muscle growth. Orange Theory won't stimulate muscle growth. The F45s, the boot camps, the circuits, the workouts that do hit with the 30-second rest periods. If you are someone who is tired, who is struggling with low energy, who is not sleeping well, who is actively not trying to eat carbohydrates, right? You're not eating as many carbs. You're trying to avoid those. You're eating low calorie. HIIT is not a good place for you, because that stress response is going to go so much higher and things are going to get worse for you. You're going to see the hormones tank. You're going to see the blood sugar issues, the inflammation, the low thyroid, the gut health, the liver, the cellulite, all those things. Okay, so we need to make sure that we are doing things that are supportive for our hormones and our testosterone. Okay, the next one is improving progesterone. And for progesterone, number one thing that you can do is actively de-stress, because when cortisol is high from being in that stress state, it takes that precursor that you need to build progesterone and gives it away to cortisol. That's what your body prioritizes. So your body cannot produce progesterone when you are stressed. And most of us, even though you feel like you're handling it fine, your body is stressed. Answer me this. Are you tired? Do you have energy crashes? Are you struggling to fall asleep or stay asleep? Are you waking up between 1 and 5 a.m.? Are you struggling with the hot flashes? Are you skipping meals? Are you having caffeine on an empty stomach? Are you avoiding carbohydrates? Are you actively eating low calorie, like trying to lose weight? Are you doing a bunch of exercise? Are you having mood issues? All of these things are telling me your body is stressed, despite how you're feeling like you're handling it. Okay, so we need to do things to support your body to help promote progesterone production. Otherwise, you're really going to struggle. So this comes from eating enough food, having a vitamin B complex, especially if you have been on birth control. Your body is naturally going to be quite depleted of your B vitamins because your body, that's what birth control does. But also, B vitamins are notoriously hard to absorb. So most women do have to take a vitamin B complex. Take it in the morning. A B50 is great, but take it in the morning because it does increase energy, which can then influence your ability to, sleep later in the evening. Again, doing that proper exercise and focusing on improving inflammation. Inflammation is going to improve all your health markers, all your hormone production, lowering your cortisol, all those things. So the common thing among all of these factors, right? Because I covered them. Like the big things was the birth control, right? Improving your blood sugar control, gut health, estrogen, making sure we're not having estrogen dominance, low testosterone and low progesterone are all really big things that contribute to cellulite. But among all of those, there's a very common thing of how do we address this? How do we improve those things that are shown to, increase our risk of developing cellulite? limiting highly processed foods, and aim for mostly whole foods. Managing stress and cortisol, very, very important. Improving your sleep. Watching for overtraining, so training appropriately and making sure you're actually doing resistance training. Those are all things that are going to help with all the factors that we talked about. There are some other little tips that you can take. So omega-3s are great for supplementing with because that helps really decrease inflammation, which we know is going to negatively affect all those other factors, right? So taking an omega-3 because yes, you can get it from flax. Yes, you can get it from fish, but most of us aren't getting that enough daily. So supplementing with omega-3 can be very helpful. Caffeine and retinol creams seem to improve blood flow to the area. So there are creams that you can get that have caffeine and retinol in them. So that can help with the cellulite because reduced blood flow and like the pooling of fluid in those areas can increase cellulite. So taking some of those can be helpful. And then also dry brushing could help bring some more blood flow back to that area as well, to help with our lymphatic system, to help get rid of the fluid that's kind of like stuck there. That gives you that like dimpled look. But the biggest things that you need to focus on are improving blood sugar control by making sure our gut is healthy and functioning properly, that we are supporting testosterone and progesterone production, that we are supporting our liver and estrogen detoxification through proper gut health, and just managing our stress. That is the best thing that you can do. If you are someone who cuts carbs, it's supposed to drop fluid, right? Like you lose water weight really quick. That's why people get so excited on keto. You're not losing fat. The scale goes down because you're losing water because 1 gram of carbs holds 3 to 4 grams of water. But if you're eating low carb and we're seeing fluid retention and we're seeing inflammation, that tells us your body is not okay because your body is still holding on to fluid despite the carbohydrates. So that tells us that your body is not functioning properly. There's some inflammation going on. There's a lot of stress. Your body is not working the way it should. If you are cutting carbs and you are seeing the scale not drop quickly, right? Because like if you have less carbs in your body, there's less water there. That tells us something is going on. And a lot of women we talk to eat lower carb and they're struggling with fluid retention and all these things that we need to address. So I hope this was helpful. I hope that gives you a little bit of insight as to how to help with cellulite, and there aren't all these crazy products that you should be taking. It really comes to lifestyle, nutrition, all those things. So make sure you share this with any friends that are struggling with this. If you need help figuring out where to start, because it can be very overwhelming as to like, what should I be doing? Just message me. I'm always happy to help. And then again, of course, make sure you subscribe and share with all your friends. Love you so much and have a great rest of your day. Bye.